Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Richard Morris. We warmly welcome the family of Company Sergeant Major Stanley Alec Dyer, who are watching the live stream of this evening's ceremony. His story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Company Sergeant Major Stanley Alec Dyer. Stanley Dyer was born on the 16th of June, 1894, in Uradla, South Australia. The third son of William and Agnes Dyer's 4 children, he was educated at Uradla Primary School and was a popular sportsman, playing in the local cricket and football teams. Dyer was also a member of the Uradla Lodge and a secretary of the social club. As a young adult, he was employed as a gardener and served in the Citizens' Forces at the outbreak of war in 1914. Stanley Dyer enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 27th of November 1914. He was assigned to the 10th Battalion and began training with his battalion. In February 1915, he embarked from Melbourne on board the troop ship Clan MacGillivray, bound for Egypt. Dyer reached Alexandria in March 1915, and after training in the desert camps outside Cairo, arrived on the Gallipoli Peninsula in May. Shortly after arriving, he was wounded in his right hand. Sent to hospital to recover, he returned to duty in July. By August, he was taken ill with a bout of colic, requiring a short stay in a casualty clearing station on the peninsula. After the evacuation of Gallipoli in December, Dyer and his unit returned to Egypt before embarking to France in March 1916. Dyer's first major action on the Western Front was at the Battle of Pozieres in July. The German forces had a distinct advantage around the village, holding the high ground which enabled them to launch devastating attacks on advancing troops. The weight of artillery fire concentrated on the Pozieres section razed villages to the ground and made capturing the village a treacherous and seemingly impossible task. The offensive at Pozieres took place over 42 days, and the Australians made as many as 19 separate attacks against German positions. Australian divisions succeeded in capturing Pozieres on the 5th of August, but this came at a tremendous cost. Allied casualties totalled a staggering 23,000 men captured, wounded, or killed. Dyer survived the offensive, mostly unscathed, but was wounded in his action during his unit's operation at Gurdakhor in November. His injuries necessitated a week-long stay in hospital. Months later, in early 1917, Dyer was serving in the front lines around Lagnicourt when he was wounded for a third time, sustaining injuries to his legs caused by shrapnel and bullets. He was evacuated to England to recover, spending 2 months in a hospital near Oxford. In June, he rejoined his unit and took part in the fighting at Menin Road in September and Broodcinder Ridge in October. In November, he was mentioned in dispatches for devotion to duty throughout 1917. His commanding officer said, "Dyer has shown great courage in notion and devotion to duty, at all times proving himself a most reliable and efficient NCO. He showed great courage and resourcefulness when his officer had been wounded, getting his platoon into position allotted and supervising the consolidation of the position gained." In April 1918, the 10th Battalion was moving to the area around Strazil in Belgium. There, they were given orders to attack the town of Meteren, which seemed an easy target given the waning morale of its German occupants. The plan was to encircle the village, attack its defences, and overwhelm the enemy. Dyer's company encountered strong opposition, sustaining several casualties, which forced them to withdraw. While pulling back, Dyer was wounded for a 4th time, sustaining further injuries to his right leg from machine gun fire. He was evacuated to England for recovery. He returned to France in July, and the following month was moved with his unit to Arbonnières shortly after the decisive Battle of Amiens. At Arbonnières, Dye's unit received orders to attack the enemy position at Crepay Wood. The 9th and 11th Battalions were under fierce opposition from the enemy, leaving the 10th Battalion to push forward with limited cover on their flanks. Dye's company was clearing the periphery of the wood when the enemy opened fire. With little cover, they were left exposed. Dye was hit by machine gun fire, which struck his head and killed him instantly. He was buried at Heath Cemetery, near where he fell. He was 24 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Company Sergeant Major Stanley Alec Dyer, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.